Landlord telling me to move out because he's selling the unit. I signed a 6-month lease in February, it ends at the end of July. My landlord said he's selling the unit and I need to find a new place at the end of my lease. However, everything else similar to this is $500, $1,000 more, so I definitely do not want to leave. I'd love to stay on a month-to-month basis. What do I need to know in this situation? Do I have the right to stay until it sells? Once it sells, how long do I have to move out? Etc. etc. Building was built before 2018. This is in Ontario. In Ontario, he can't kick you out. He has to sell with you as a tenant. Then the new landlord can evict you if they plan to move in, but there is a process for that. Don't agree to or sign anything. This only works if you rent an apartment, not if you rent a room. In Ontario, you don't have to go anywhere, buyer assumes any tenants. That said, the new buyer can remove you with proper forms if they intend to use the home for themselves, with some compensation for yourself. I suggest all communication with your landlord from now on is done via email and nothing is official unless they are using the appropriate forms EAN 12. You have to pay $1,000 more to rent somewhere else. That there is the reason he is selling. He can't jack up your rent, but his mortgage is increasing, so he is just going to sell rather than be short each month. Damn. Seeing these posts multiple times daily now. Sad times. Prayers for you. If he serves you proper forms on behalf of the buyers, you need to move. He needs to compensate you for 1 month of rent, I believe. The form is N12. Termination date must be at least 60 days from the date of notice, so he can now give you notice for end of August, a bit too late for end of July. If he sells the home, either he will be required to give you the appropriate LTB forms to leave, or the new buyer will if they are moving in. If the buyer is moving in, you'd need to move, so I would start looking for a place. If the new buyers are willing to rent it, then you have the right to stay. Google John Dickey. He is a lawyer, so don't make your request long, but he's the rep for owners of rental properties. He can definitely let you know what the rules are. Stay put. You don't have to move, you are protected by rights. So if the lease is up next month and he sells it after the lease ends, then what ground would a tenant have to stay? It's not their place and the lease has expired. Genuinely asking because I'm in the States, and if your lease is up you have to sign a new lease up to landlord if they want you to stay, or you have to move out. Shocking that anyone chooses to be a landlord in Ontario. What is the point of a fixed-term tenancy if the parties cannot terminate at the end of the term? This is a common thing to happen. If you want more specific advice, go pop over to Ontario Landlord for discussions about scenarios and options. There are opportunities to be bought out, so the sale is a more attractive one to potential buyers, but it is possible that this landlord is acting in bad faith and wants you out to raise the rent substantially. And the new buyer can make sure you are served with the proper notice and you sign a legal document saying you are moving out. Of course that would mean the seller has to give you compensation. At least in BC you get 2 months notice, and yes, most buyers will add them on their condition to make sure the seller does everything correctly. Heck, if me as a buyer intend to move in and the tenant signed all the proper notice but decide to fight it and refuse to move, I am going to over in and call the police on them. They sign the document, they know they have to move out. Say nothing, do nothing besides carrying on as normal and paying your agreed rent. Let the bozo figure out on his own that he doesn't have a leg to stand on. Stay. He wants you to move, tell him sell it with me in it. He probably wants you to move out so he can rent it out for an extra $500, $100 a month in additional revenue. Fight it. This province is so messed up that tenants think they have the right to just stay in a unit despite the landlord's wishes. I'd hate to be a landlord these days. I am not a fan of entitlement. The lease agreement is 6 months. He gave you, I presume, 60 days notice. it is reasonable to leave and find a new place. Go for a big company instead of a smaller landlord. Lol, this can't be a serious question. Confused face. The person owns the place? What do you mean? Is there anything you can do? Get the fuck out that person's place. Crying face. Just move out and don't give the landlord a headache. They trusted you, so respect that. It's his house. Get out. Wrong sub. This fits better legal advice. Your lease ends in July. That's the risk you run with a short-term lease. Why should the owner be forced to keep you as a tenant after your agreed-upon contract ends? You're just delaying the inevitable. At least he's not doing illegal shit like most of the other landlords out there. If you do stay, expect a rent increase of the maximum amount as soon as possible. That would be 12 months after your first move-in. So, at least that gets you 6 more months. Looks like it's time to start practicing my welcoming dance for the new owner. Another dumb landlord post. I will wait till you meet your new owner. Chances he will raise the rent. If his lease is up, the landlord does not need to offer him a new lease. He has to sell the unit with you attached as a tenant, and will have to go through a legal eviction with LTB. You'll have to be paid out to leave early. Google Cash for keys. This will be an uncomfortable confrontation, but will be worth it. What happens if I have an active lease with my landlord? Can they still sell before the lease ends? They do have some leeway if the new buyers want you out. He can then give notice 60 days. In Ontario, only the LTB can evict you. The landlord must file an N12 to apply for an eviction order. The landlord cannot unilaterally decide this on their own. Even if they sell and the buyers want to move in, that still requires an application to the LTB. So can't the landlord issue N12 saying that he wants to move in and eat a month or two of rent and sell it? There is nothing prohibiting from doing that. Saves the headache. If the lease auto-converts to month, are there restrictions on rent increases? I.e., can the landlord just raise rent 10 every month? You will go to a month-to-month automatically. Your landlord needs to hand you an official form off the LTB website. So since none of that has been done, you don't need to do anything. I'm just curious. In what circumstances can the landlords raise the rent? I believe where I live they can do it once the lease ends and have to be 6 months apart. Just tell him to check the laws in Ontario, that you will be moving out when the new owner follows all the proper procedures. When your lease is up, it's the owner's decision to renew also. If he doesn't want to renew at the end of lease, you gotta go. You're getting a lot of advice about tenancy law here. However, you've signed a 6-month term which would make it a short-term rental. Short-term rentals aren't covered by RTA in Ontario. Plus, it's acting in bad faith to sign for a short-term tenancy and decide you don't want to leave. Tell your landlord you're not leaving until the end of the lease you guys agreed on, so he can wait until then to sell. Ask for 1 month rent and move out. Pretty sure the new owner can do as they pleased, even evicting you, since your contract is with the existing owner. He can issue you an N12 now and you'll have 60 days, so end of August. He can't just up and kick you out now, as adequate notice has to be given. 60 days is minimum in Canada. I believe they can evict you if they are planning on doing renovations in order to sell the unit, but other than that it's only if they want to move into it or if it isn't up to code or something like that. Do not move. This greedy landlord can either pay you $10,000 to leave at the end of your lease, or can kick rocks because you can stay for a long time before you're evicted by the LTB. Right back, I know my rights and will not be moving. If you want to discuss a cash for keys deal, I would be open to that. Do not accept anything less than 6 full months of rent. Get the fuck out. Why did you sign 6 months then? Bad faith of you, and now you're gonna cause grief to the landlord. It's crazy that a person that owns a thing can sell that thing. What is the world coming to?